So after I lost my job because, well, I got sick, it was a very high-paying job, I found out that my wife didn't really love me for me. She loved me because I was making so much money. Well, there's one thing that I didn't tell her that was pretty devastating, so I'm going to share it with you guys, and let me just tell you right now, this is going to teach her a lesson. Hello everyone, I hope you guys are doing great. I'm 49, male, and I'm going through a horrible and stressful predicament right now. I need to get this off my chest and vent for a bit because I'm feeling so alone and stressed out. I would appreciate any kind of comments or advice you people out there reading this would be willing to throw my way, because in just a short amount of time, I've had my entire world upside down. My life, as I previously knew it, is irreparably changed forever. First, I'll need to give you all some background information, so please bear with me as this is going to be a long post. First, I've been happily married to Mallory, the woman I thought was the love of my life for years now. We've had bumps in the road along the way, but never anything I was unwilling to look past. In hindsight, now that my entire life has been twisted around, perhaps I should have been more cognizant of Mallory's flaws. As corny as it may sound, I've always believed in the old cliché about a man's spouse being his better half, and the half of a man that completes him and makes him whole. I truly bought into all that till death do us part propaganda. After what happened to me recently, I'm starting to think that all this marriage business was just a bunch of junk made up to sell Hallmark cards, because something crazy has happened to me. Perhaps I was only blind to changes in Mallory over time because I've been so consumed with another major source of stress in my life. You see, it all started a few months back when I developed a mysterious cough. I didn't think much of it at first. I figured it was just a common cold that would go away. Unfortunately, the cough persisted, and it got worse. Then I began to feel constant weakness, fatigue, irritability, loss of appetite, and a slew of other symptoms I won't get into. Without giving too much details, things finally reached a tipping point, and I was forced to leave my work early one afternoon, make a trip to the ER. That's when a man in a lab coat walked in with a serious, stern look on his face. The doctor carried a clipboard with a slew of information written all over it, and after having numerous tests done on my system, I knew what he was about to share with me could not be good. Sure enough, my worst fears were confirmed right there in the office in that fateful afternoon. The doctor told me I've been diagnosed with a serious illness. He suspected it's terminal. I felt my face turn ghostly white as I sat and pondered the gravity of what I've been told. I'm only 49 years of age, and I'd planned on living much longer and growing old with my beautiful wife Mallory. This was heartbreaking. I kept the news from Mallory as long as I could. I didn't want to stress her out or trouble her with the news. I was still having trouble wrapping my head around the diagnosis and accepting it myself, so I wasn't even sure how to approach the topic with Mallory. I continued to work, and I had a high-paying warehouse job, as it was important for me to work for as long as I could to save up money for when I passed. And Mallory was left alone. I wanted there to be enough for her to live off when I was gone. Unfortunately, the duties of my warehouse manager position were simply too much for me to handle. They were hard enough on me as a relatively healthy man in his late 40s. Physical labor certainly takes its toll on the body, even though the money and benefits at my company have always been stellar. I kept working for as long as I could, but then I had another episode at work and passed out right there on the floor in the middle of the warehouse. The company called me for an ambulance, and I was sent to the same doctor who had diagnosed me. He gave me the news that the condition of my illness was worsening rapidly, and I needed to retire. He told me in no uncertain terms that if I continued to work at my physical manual labor job, I would die sooner than later. This was another crucial blow to my emotional state. I wanted to work as long as I could to save up and leave a good chunk of money for Mallory when I was gone, and here I was being told that I was going to have to give up the job that I've loved for years. My company was graciously willing to work with me to an extent. Per company policy, of course, they were able to grant me a medical leave of absence, where I would essentially remain an employee without going to work. But I would receive 2/3 of my pay. While 2/3 of my regular pay will still be a decent amount, I was depending on my full pay and my overtime hours to help with medical bills and save money for Mallory when I was no longer around. This was going to be a crucial blow to my financial situation, and to be honest, I was scared. Finally, I could not keep the news from Mallory any longer. I had expected her to show some sort of emotional response to the news that I've been diagnosed with what was essentially a terminal illness, but Mallory did not seem to be too fazed by this revelation whatsoever. She asked me a few questions about the nature of my illness and how long the doctors thought I had to live, and I just began sobbing as I was telling her this information. I reached to hug her for comfort because I assumed she would desire comfort as I was at the moment. I was shocked and stunned when Mallory pushed me away. She then asked me about my work situation, and I told her that I was forced to retire from my job, but that I was going to be on a medical leave of absence that enabled me to still bring home a paycheck, albeit one modest in comparison to my old paycheck. I casually told Mallory this information without thinking much about it, but then I saw that my job and financial situation were of far greater concern to her than the state of my illness or how long I had to live. Mallory's whole demeanor changed when I gave her the news that I would no longer be working. She callously asked out loud, "So this means you're broke now? You're just going to be a bum?" I felt my jaw drop. I thought it was going to fall and hit the floor. I was stunned at the callousness, coldness, and sheer audacity of Mallory to make such a comment to me when I was at my lowest. I pleaded with her to understand what I was doing, dying of a disease against my own choice, and that if it were up to me, I'd continue going to work and working hard to provide for us. That's when Mallory just crossed her arms, lets out this big sigh, and dropped a bombshell on me. That is the reason why I'm typing this post today, and she said, "We're getting divorced." I couldn't believe it. I could feel myself going numb with shock, and I asked Mallory to explain herself, and she admitted that she had hated me and found me annoying for years. She said that I was bad at pleasing her in bed, and she said that she had been seeing a handsome young lawyer named Hank behind my back for the past year. I immediately began bawling, and Mallory's facial expression did not change. She felt absolutely nothing for me, and it was obvious. How had I been so blind? I suppose I was too busy hard to work, and care for this family, too busy juggling a terminal illness on top of my finances, and all to make sure that this woman, who did not even care about me, would not have to struggle once I was gone from this earth. This is truly the worst day of my life. I could see that Mallory was beyond convincing at this point. There was no evidence to the contraire that could sway her. She was truly out of love with me, if she had ever been in love with me to begin with. I signed the divorce papers that she already had prepared, and I'm guessing her new little boy toy, Hank, did her a favor for her and sent Mallory on her way. She said that she was leaving the house to go stay at Hank's expensive condo. She just had to throw that in my face as she was leaving. Guys, I am just absolutely devastated. There aren't words to express the emptiness and despair that I feel within my soul right now. The woman I loved was someone that I did not even truly know. I still can't get over how she said she hated me. What a powerful and horrible word to say. A word so strong that many do not know the true weight of its massive power. As I sit here in my empty, lonely house contemplating all that's happened to me recently, I do have one thing I would like to share with you all before I log off. You see, the company I work for isn't just an old random company. It's a company I helped my best friend Ziggy build. Ziggy was my best friend since our college days at business school, and Ziggy was a motivated man with a vision. He had the idea for a warehouse, and he did most of the work. Seeing as how he was the brains and all, but since I was his best friend, I ended up volunteering to do a lot of free labor for him. I didn't mind because I wanted to help him live his dream. When the company started to get successful and Ziggy began to amass a decent fortune, he offered me a leadership position with corporate, and he even offered me a scenario where I could become the CEO in case anything ever happened to Ziggy. I turned this down because I didn't want the stress, and finally Ziggy passed away, an untimely death in a car accident one day, and I was devastated. That's when I found out he left me his fortune, $10 million share of the company, right there in his will. He insisted that I keep it and be forced to take the money, just in case I tried to take it down. I decided to keep this money a secret from everybody I knew. Truthfully, it was meant to be a surprise to Mallory. I was going to give her the money when I retired, or now that I have, this illness when I die. Mallory has no idea she just played herself out of a fund that would have kept her secure for the rest of her life. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this little secret of mine, but hey, we'll see. Update number 1. Hey guys, OP here. Back for an update. First, I'd like to thank everybody who left kind and supportive comments on my first post. Going through a divorce is hard enough, but juggling a divorce on top of a terminal illness, it's even crazier. I feel as if I have the weight of the entire world on my shoulders right now, and all the kind comments from you all have truly made me feel a little less alone in all this crap going on. I wish I could say things are better though, but I have a feeling that they're only getting worse. I talked to Mallory today for the first time since she left me the other day. I get a call from her. I almost didn't even pick up the phone, but I'll admit, as pathetic as it sounds, there was a small part of me hoping she was calling to try to reconcile with me. I don't know if I'd have been strong enough to turn it down, but after what happened today, I'm starting to realize Mallory's been this foul person forever. I was just blind to it. I asked her how she had been doing after I greeted her with a hello. I intended on carrying on a civil phone call with this woman, but Mallory, of course, seemed to have different plans. She began screaming at me with an accusatory tone, saying I'd kept the fact that I was a shareholder secret from her. I just laughed at her. I asked her how she found out that I was a major shareholder in the company, and she said, Hank found the information on my company's website. Imagine that. My own company sold me out. I guess the information was always there and we just had no idea. She demanded half the money immediately, but I laughed and kindly reminded her she signed a prenup when we first got married when she thought I was broke. She vowed to get revenge on me and hung up the phone. Update number 2. Hey everyone, OP here for another mini update. I'm not sure if I'm just losing my mind or being paranoid or what, but I have a bad feeling about something that just happened to me, and I wanted to get your opinion on the matter. Hopefully I'm just overthinking things and being silly, but I have a suspicion I can't quite shake. I was pulling out of my driveway earlier. It's quite a long driveway, so there's, time to get some speed on the way down. Suddenly, a man in an ill-fitting suit jumped out in front of my car. I slammed the brakes, but I still hit him. I thought I had just barely tapped him, but the man immediately hit the ground and began crying out in pain, saying he needed to go to the hospital now. I panicked, got out of my car, and called emergency. We exchanged information, and if I was truly responsible, I wanted this man to get his fair share and have his injuries fixed. The man said his name was Boris. What I still don't understand is why this man just happened to be walking around near my property in a suit that looked like he'd never even worn it before. It was almost like somebody else had dressed the man and sent him to my home. This was weird, but I'm hoping it's just another freak occurrence and not anything nefarious. Update number 3. Hello people, I've got another urgent update for you. I can't seem to catch a break with all this drama and stress in my life. I've been tossed yet another curveball, and it seems like life only has curveballs in store for me at this point. So, on top of being divorced and dying of terminal illness, I found out today after checking my mailbox and receiving a letter that I'm being sued by Boris for the injuries he supposedly sustained from the car accident. Frankly, the man did not look too injured to me, but I'm hoping he wasn't badly hurt and does not take me to the cleaners. But what's the most bizarre thing about all this is that the person Boris hired to be his lawyer, the letter from none other than the law offices of Hank. I'm going to need to hire a lawyer and prepare a case, because who knows what sort of dastardly tricks these people have up their sleeves. I might sound crazy, but I just know Mallory is behind all this junk. I need to think of any witness or experts I can gather on my side of the team to stand up and put a stop to all this junk. I just hope Boris isn't too injured, because I don't want him to get all the money right when I need it for medical bills, and tests and medicine and so on. I'm just so tired of all this stress I've been put through lately. I could use any advice you guys out there are willing to give me, because I feel like I'm at the end of my ropes here. Update number 4. Hey guys, I'm back. Back for another update. There's been a lot of development since my last post, and thanks to everybody who's still reading this, I know a lot of you have been asking about what happened. I've been so busy preparing and getting ready for the court that I simply have not had the time to get on here and make an update. I had a crazy day in court today. I was able to hire a lawyer in time for the court proceedings, and while I was indeed scared of Hank's ability as I was going into the courtroom, I soon saw that this entire case was nothing but a farce on the part of Hank and Boris. I also happened to notice when I walked into the courtroom that Mallory was sitting in the audience on Boris and Hank's side of the room. Now, what interest could she possibly have in all this? Exactly. She was there because she was concerned about the money. My lawyer was able to call in a medical expert on injuries, particularly those related to car accidents, Dr. Robert. He approached the stand, and Hank and Boris both had smug looks on their face. But these smug looks of confidence were soon shaken into make displays of fear and uncertainty. It was a pleasure to watch. You see, everyone, Dr. Robert explained quite bluntly that after looking through the injuries Boris sustained, none of them match up to, well, what's commonly seen for this type of car accident. He also pointed out that I wasn't even going fast enough to leave injuries in some of the areas where Boris was so-called injured. Dr. Robert hypothesized that Boris had injuries in bizarre places because he had forced himself to the ground when my car bumped into him in order to appear injured when the paramedics came. Finally, Boris broke down into tears and started sobbing. He bellowed like a beluga whale, making a noise that seemed to shake the entire courtroom. Hank began to visibly sweat and look more and more uneasy. That's when Boris dropped a bombshell on everybody. Well, he admitted that this entire time he was never injured. He took to the stand and showed the text messages on his phone to prove it. Hank paid Boris $100,000 to stand near my property and fake it. Apparently, Hank and Mallory had both promised Boris that there would be a whole lot more money where that come from when we take OP to the cleaners. The judge was stunned, and Dr. Roberts was even more stunned. Even I was slightly stunned, because I never thought Boris would just come right out and admit what happened. It was crazy, very crazy, but I'm interested to see how the rest of this goes. I'm ready for all this junk to be over with. I was so ill earlier today, and I had to attend a court in a wheelchair. Final update. Hey guys, OP here. I know it's been a while since my last update, and I wanted to wrap things up for everybody and not leave us on a cliffhanger. I greatly appreciate all of you who left kind and supportive comments throughout the whole ordeal. I truly could not have survived this whole affair without your support, so again, thank you. Not that I haven't enjoyed my time with you all, but I'm thankful to report that this is going to be my final update. After the massive blunder Boris displayed in court, Hank was left humiliated. The judge called us in for a session first thing in the morning, and he said he needed some time to think about all the crap that had gone down. I knew he was serious because judges never use words like that in public. I could tell Hank was just nervous walking into the court that morning, as I had been the day before. Mallory was still in the audience, and the judge called her to take the stand with Hank. He sentenced Mallory and Hank and Boris to jail time, although he went easy on Boris for being honest and coming out in the open. Boris is homeless, so he doesn't mind going to jail, he says. But Mallory and Hank began sobbing like babies in the courtroom. It was hilarious to watch. On top of that, the judge suspended Hank's legal license as well. And as for what I'm up to nowadays, well, you might be wondering how I'm even still here. After the court was concluded, I decided to move to another state. I planned on going there to die. But when I got there, my condition got so much better without dealing with all the stress Mallory and my old job were putting in my life. I decided to cash in my share of the company and enjoy the rest of my days. I remarried a beautiful woman in town who treats me right, and she doesn't care about my money. Sometimes things just work out for some reason.
It looks like Hank, Mallory, and Boris are going to be spending some time in the slammer. I want to know your thoughts on this story, guys. What exactly you would have done in OP's position,
And we do know OP was in a pretty dire situation in some of the parts of this story. I just want to know your thoughts about it and what you would have done. So drop your comments down below in our comment section. If you guys are new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day, drama stories. It could include wedding fiascos, mother-in-law tales, you name it, we cover it. I want to ask for the people who have been watching these videos for a while, do you remember the Magda series with that mother-in-law that was seriously off her rockers? Well, I have another mother-in-law story coming out in about a week that definitely rivals Magda, so make sure that you stay tuned for that. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just remember, it's cool to be kind. Peace.